He came before his cousin John, Yahya alayhi salam. And Yahya alayhi salam said, here he is, this is the man you've been waiting for. This is the Messiah. And he said, yes, I am the Messiah. And so Allah raised Yahya alayhi salam to perform this strategic function of positively identifying the Messiah. And when the Messiah is to return, then Allah does the same thing a second time, and history repeats itself very logically. Allah raises the Imam Al-Mahdi, and his role it is to repeat what John Yahya alayhi salam did. When Nabi Isa alayhi salam comes down from the heavens with his hands resting on the wings of two angels, he will come down in front of Imam al-Mahdi. And the Imam will point to him and say, here he is, this is the son of Mary. Positive identification. The enemy is testing us, and the enemy also seeks to realize that objective where the false Messiah could rub his hands and say, mission accomplished. How can he do this? How can he liberate the Holy Land for the Jews? How can he bring the Jews back to the Holy Land to reclaim it as their own? How can he restore a state of Israel in the Holy Land, an imposter state of Israel? And how can he cause that Israel to become the ruling state in the world? Up to this day, my colleagues, my peers, scholars of international relations, people with whom I studied, up to this day they refuse. They say, Imran, you're dreaming. That could never happen. That Israel could become the ruling state in the world. How can they do this? Well, a good place to start, if you want to incapacitate Islam, if you want to weaken and paralyze Muslims, a good place to start is to cut off the head. Cut off the head. And when the head is cut off, the body ain't nowhere going. And so they took aim at the Khilafah. And in the process of taking aim at the Khilafah, they were also able to liberate the Holy Land. It was the summer of 1914. There were 6 major powers in Europe. And there was a dark horse across the continent, a place called United States of America, which does not yet emerge as a power. The 6 great powers were Britain, France, Russia, Germany, Hungary, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Islamic Empire. And so what they did was they engineered a monstrous act of terrorism, a carbon copy of which appeared on September the 11th. The same people who did it in the summer of 1914, you're shaking your head now, is the same people who did it on September the 11th. They assassinated the Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary and made the footprints go in the direction of Russia. So Austria-Hungary declared war on Russia. But Russia had a treaty of defense with Britain and France, so Britain and France had to enter the war on the side of Russia. And then Germany entered on the side of Austria-Hungary. So now only one power is left. Using all kind of conspiracy, all kind of rachifi, they were able to force the Ottoman Islamic Empire into the war on the side of Germany. And so was launched the First World War. Once the war was launched, Britain had as one of her primary goals to seek to deprive the Ottoman Islamic Empire of the capacity to wage jihad, to mobilize Muslims from all around the world into the war. And the best place to start is with the Arabs, to turn the Arabs away from the Turks. And the best way to deprive the Khilafah in Istanbul, the Khalifa in Istanbul, of his moral authority as Amir al-Mu'mineen, is to seek to take away Makkah from him, take away the Kaaba from him, take away the Hajj from him. If you are Khalifa and you don't control the Hajj, what kind of Khalifa are you? And so what they did was to send British spies into Arabia. One of them, you know him very well, I call him Lawrence of Arabia. And of course they went with a checkbook in their hands. And at that time, as this time, every man had his price. Some of them you could buy with a small check when election time come. And some of them you had to buy them with a bigger check. Huh? Yes. So he went, Lawrence of Arabia went to the Sharif of Mecca. All of this history is in this book, so I don't have to tell it to you. The Califate, the Hijaz, and the Saudi Wahhabi nation state. And he offered the Sharif of Mecca, who was the great-great-grandfather of the present king of Jordan, a check for 7 million sterling pound. That's a lot of money now, you know. If you would break your links with the Khalifa, with the Amir al-Mu'mineen, declare yourself independent from him, and become an ally of us. And Sharif Hosein accepted the money. Yes. 7 million pounds. And then he reneged from his bay'ah with the Khalifa in Istanbul. The Turks never used Turkish troops in Mecca to guard Mecca. They left it to Arab troops. But the Turks used a Turkish garrison to defend Medina. And for the life of me, I still can't understand why. Is it because that they had some strange, mystical love for Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam? The Turkish soldiers had to guard Medina, but not Mecca. As soon as Sharif al-Hussein broke ranks with the Khilafah in Istanbul, and Mecca became independent of the Khilafah, the Khalifa no longer controls the Hajj. The Khalifa no longer controls the Kaaba, the Haram. It was a mortal blow to his legitimacy and to his authority. Imagine, you know the fellow who was in Afghanistan, Mullah Omar, Taliban leader? Shake your head a little bit, man. And some people were saying that Mullah Omar should be recognized as the Caliph, the Khalifa. Yeah. So I started to laugh in New York. I said, well, suppose the Khalifa want to perform Hajj, Mullah Omar. I send his passport to the Saudi consulate. You are the Khalifa? We recognize you as the Khalifa? Amir al-Mu'mineen? And you want to perform Hajj? Yeah, send your passport to the Saudi consulate. And suppose the Saudi consulate is stamped no visa for you. You can't perform the Hajj. What kind of Khalifa are you? Huh? This is to get you to understand in a more dramatic way that in order for you to achieve legitimacy as Khalifa, political legitimacy, practical legitimacy, you must have control over the Haram. You must have control over the Hajj. The British were diabolically clever in their diplomacy. They still are very clever people. Diabolically clever. They didn't put all their eggs in one basket. Yeah? So while they negotiated with Sharif al-Hussein for a check of £7 million, and they got him on their side. They went to his rival. His rival was a Saudi Wahhabi leader with a religious movement opposed to Sharif al-Hussein, the Wahhabi movement. In the same way that the Protestant movement came into Christianity and produced Protestantism, with the spiritual heart of the religion now destroyed, and the Protestant movement went to Judaism and created Reformed Judaism with the spiritual heart of Judaism destroyed, and the Protestant movement went to Hinduism and produced the Brahmo Samaj, the Arya Samaj, Reformed Hinduism, with the spiritual heart of the religion destroyed. So too the Protestant movement came to Islam and produced the Wahhabi movement with the spiritual heart of the religion gone. And that Wahhabi movement had a political alliance with the Saudi family. And so the Saudi Wahhabi alliance was out there in Riyadh. So the British spies went to Riyadh, of course, with your checkbook in your hand. But he couldn't command £7 million because he's just a small fry. So he was able to negotiate for £5,000 a month in bribe. Well, when his followers, who were Muslims who believed themselves to be pious, how you could take money from the kuffar? He said, nah, there is jizya. Jizya is what a subject people will pay as a kind of punitive tax for permission to live in our territory. So Abdulaziz ibn Saud was saying that Britain was paying to him jizya. That is a kind of sharia. That is the kind of convenient theology that came out of the Wahhabi movement. That's why they don't like this book. No. When Abdulaziz joined the camp of Britain, Britain went further than giving a check. They made him sign a treaty in 1916. I mean, the Saudi Wahhabis wish that that treaty could just disappear. They don't want to hear about it. Which put Abdulaziz ibn Saud firmly in the British camp, which became the British-American camp, which is in fact the British-American-Israeli camp. That's where they are today. And so now Britain has treaties with Sharif al-Hussein here in Mecca and with Abdulaziz ibn Saud out there in Riyadh, and these two are enemies each other. So you don't put all your egg in the same basket, eh? British diplomacy. And then Britain worked on the Khilafah in Istanbul. The best way to take control of a country is to infiltrate the military. That is how the Islamic Republic of Pakistan became the American Republic of Pakistan. You understand now? You infiltrate the military so you could create a Musharraf who appears to be a Pakistani, but he's a Yankee Musharraf. Serving their ends. They put him there by conspiracy. The conspiracy that they used to put Musharraf there was an aeroplane in the sky business. But in the case of Mustafa Kemal, it had to be far more complex than that. Because the Turkish people loved their Khalifa. They loved their Islam. And so, but I don't have the time to tell you that story. A long story of how they were able to manipulate with consummate deception to portray Mustafa Kemal as a hero. First of all, that British troops, supported by Arab troops, in 1919 defeated the Turkish garrison in Medina. No, they didn't defeat them. There was a traitor on board in Medina, and he sold us out to the British. That's how they were